Captain Midnight.
This video will contain spoilers. I'll be upfront with you all right now. There's a very decent chance that I am putting out this video too late. Masters of the Universe released on June 5th, and judging from my feeds at least, it feels like the movie has already come and gone. It's having a rough time of it at the box office, and with some stiff competition and a competitive month ahead of it, things aren't looking too hot for He-Man, at least theatrically. This is a big budget movie banking on 80s nostalgia, and it doesn't seem to have worked. I'm conflicted, because the thing is, I liked this movie. Sure, not all of it worked, but overall, this was better than I expected it to be going into it. And to be honest, I think if this opened in like 2015, it would have done much better. Masters of the Universe, at times, feels like a better execution of what the MCU does well than many recent Marvel movies. But here we are, with a very soft opening weekend and then a brutal drop. I'm going to be talking about what went wrong here and why I think this project was kind of doomed from the start. But I'm also going to go over what I liked about it and how I think there's a sliver of hope for it in the future.
Who's the big guy with the muscles?
He's He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe. Watch this action, Dad.
Now, when I say that Masters of the Universe caters to 80s nostalgia, I really mean a specific strand of it, one that felt inescapable to me when I first started reading people talk about movies online in middle school around 2005. Back then, the anticipation, or dread, depending on who you talk to, for Michael Bay's upcoming Transformers film was high. And these animated shows, from the childhoods of people 10 to 15 years older than me, like Transformers, Masters of the Universe, She-Ra, and Thundercats, were often talked about in reverent tones. Yes, on some level everyone understood that they were mostly vehicles to sell toys, but to that generation, they seemed to mean so much more than that. Honestly, it was something I couldn't totally relate to, just as I'm sure there's younger viewers who watch an old video of mine on like Spider-Man the Animated Series and feel like I'm putting it on a pedestal a little bit. I think that's okay. It's a cycle that plays out over and over again, and this isn't really meant as a knock against those shows. I just think it's clear that for the most part, their time in the online nostalgia sun is largely over, outside of their own fan circles. If you look at what's actually working in theaters right now, it's not really nostalgia in the Transformers He-Man sense anymore. It's like recognition of stuff that already lives in people's online lives. Backrooms didn't explode because audiences were pining for a 2019 creepypasta. It was millions of people that had already fallen down that rabbit hole on YouTube and TikTok and were curious to see a new, more polished version of that idea. And it quickly became A24's highest grossing film ever, like off a modest budget, by taking a familiar piece of internet lore and pushing it somewhere new. Most importantly, it felt aimed squarely at the audience that still goes to movie theaters. Obsession did something similar. Its Twilight Zone-esque concept wasn't like something brand new, but it was executed well and made by an online creator that people had been familiar with for years. He was making a movie for the exact audience and demographic who had already been watching his videos and shorts. So it's not that audiences are done with recognizable ideas, but they do seem a lot more interested in things that feel current. Gen Z is the most active movie-going demographic at the moment. Around 85 to 87% of them went to at least one movie theatrically in the last year, and they go a lot more often than older generations. When you line that up next to Masters of the Universe, which is a very pricey attempt to resurrect a brand that peaked before a lot of its potential audience was born, and who may only know it from a YouTube video that went viral when they were like 5, that's a problem. It's trying to sell people on a lavishly reconstructed past at the exact moment that they're rewarding movies that feel like they've escaped this IP model. Even if something like Backrooms was kind of an IP, but at least in a new way. And that meant this movie really needed to be a hit with the existing fans, who just aren't showing up as much. It's in this environment that a big-budget Masters of the Universe landed in theaters, a movie that aims to satisfy those fans while being tasked with capturing the attention of a younger generation. And that's probably too much to ask of a He-Man movie at this point, but it makes a real attempt. I think Guardians of the Galaxy looms large over the film. I don't want to keep calling back to the MCU all the time, but I think it's undeniable how much of an influence that kind of was here. The movie tries to ride that line that Guardians rode so well, constantly acknowledging the ridiculousness of its setting and characters, while still trying to take those characters' emotions and their inner demons seriously. This is a tone that can work well in the right hands, and then can also be just incredibly embarrassing in the wrong ones. Thankfully though, this is not a Borderlands situation. Director Travis Knight gets a lot of credit for that. He's kind of becoming the king of, that was a better take on an 80s cartoon than I expected, that also underperformed at the box office, between this and Bumblebee. And he has some legitimately good non-IP movies too. I think he threads the needle of Winky and Ernest pretty well here. All the He-Man characters retain their over-the-top names, but with the context that these names were given to them by Adam as a child when he didn't know their real ones. As someone who has really respected him as an actor over the years, I was initially baffled to see Idris Elba here as Man of War. But you know, it really proves to be more than an easy paycheck job for him, as Duncan kind of has the most satisfying character arc in the film, losing all faith in himself after the collapse of Eternia, falling into alcoholism and despair for 15 years, and then needing to rediscover his purpose. Initially, I expected him to just kind of flip a switch and become his old self. I think that's often how it works in screenplays for movies like this, but surprisingly, no, the movie takes his situation seriously, and how it affects his relationship with his daughter Teela, who, unlike Adam, has been burned one too many times to believe that her father could really become the man he used to be. Teela is a little shortchanged in the movie overall, but I think this father-daughter relationship is one of the strongest aspects of the film. Adam, our lead, is a little too bumbling in the first half hour or so. Working in HR at an office in Oklahoma City, which looks suspiciously like London, the movie goes to the well of him being kind of a clueless wimp one too many times early on. In the end, I don't think anything about his story is too surprising, like, wow, okay, the power was inside him all along, not the sword, who'd have known? But even this, I don't want to be too dismissive of, because Nicholas Galitzine had definitely won me over by the end. Again, I think it's his relationship to his father that really adds some texture to the character. A king who had tried to mold his son into a brave warrior, not understanding the lasting impact that his disapproval would have on him. Adam pleading to his dying father that he's finally the man he wanted him to be, and the king being confused, completely unaware of the impression that he'd left on his kid. It was a more moving and emotionally complex moment than I really expected from the He-Man movie. Then we have Jared Leto and Alison Brie as the villains. It's funny, this is probably Leto's best performance in a while, but he was understandably left out of the press tour entirely. Obviously, he's got a skull face in this one, and really only the credits will let you know that it was him. I have a whole video on Jared Leto. I won't cover him too much as an actor here, but this is a Saturday morning cartoon villain just through and through. No sympathetic backstory, no complex motivations, just an evil guy for evil's sake. And the movie really goes out of its way to hammer that home. He doesn't fully swing for the fences and give us a full-on nasally voice Skeletor, but the evil cackling, the sarcasm, it's there. And I think it manages to ride that line between a punchline and an actually imposing villain. And okay, this could have just been me, but I had a hard time understanding a pretty decent amount of Skeletor's lines. Was this just like a My Theater thing? Like, please tell me. Anyway, Skeletor is an incredibly limited character, and trying to change that would have probably subtracted from what made him memorable in the first place. This is not a villain built to carry much in the way of complex characterization, so the movie just doesn't ask him to. But because of that, I think Alison Brie's Evelyn is kind of a letdown. It's not that she's bad, it's that I kept waiting for her to show her cards. We see how much she rolls her eyes at Skeletor and puts up with abuse from him. It seemed like this was all building to something, where she'd change sides or try to take the power for herself. Instead, she just kind of bows out, leaving Skeletor to his fate. I will say even this though, I think works well enough in context. It hammers home the difference between Adam and his enemy. Adam is an HR guy. His first instinct in any dangerous situation is to fall back on conflict resolution and corporate/therapy buzzwords. This is mostly played for laughs early on. And even when it seems like there's gonna be a scene where maybe his peacekeeping tactics are going to work, that just never really happens. There's no bridging the gap with a guy like Skeletor. But the team building stuff actually does. After coming off like a buffoon to the hardened warriors of Eternia, he is able to bring them together and use his skills of talking up a team to help them break out of a jail cell, once he learns to drop some of the jargon. So where Adam knows how to inspire people, Skeletor rules with fear and intimidation, and as a result has a right-hand woman that's willing to walk away the moment he needs her most. Adam's background in HR might be too soft for Eternia, but it does make him a better leader. Again, this is not complex characterization, but I think it works well for the kind of simple story that they're telling here, even if it is kind of a waste of Alison Brie. What this all adds up to is a solid entry into the type of big budget movie that's been the model for success in the last 10 years. A giant, ridiculous CGI world, some laughs, some earnest heart, a known brand getting revitalized. On paper, I can see why they would greenlight this, and I do think the execution is on a higher level than a lot of the attempts at this sort of thing in recent years. But it also feels just a little too late. Masters of the Universe spent roughly 20 years in development hell, bouncing between Sony, Warner Brothers, Netflix, and finally Amazon MGM, burning through millions at Netflix alone before that version just collapsed entirely. Every year it spent in that limbo was another year the potential audience aged out of the demographic that studios need to make franchise films viable. The parents who grew up with He-Man in 1983 are in their mid to late 40s now, and their kids probably have no real relationship to the property. And the generation that buys the most movie tickets right now, Gen Z, may not even know what it is or just see it as incredibly dated. The way that this movie and its marketing have tried to latch on to the Four Non-Blondes song from that He-Man viral video can't help but feel like a little desperate, like that they know that this is the reference point a lot of younger people have for He-Man, even though this video itself is 15 years old now. The audience this was made for exists, but they don't seem all that interested in going to the theaters post-2020. I do think that word of mouth will be fairly positive, and I wouldn't be surprised if this did really well on Prime Video down the line. I don't know if that would ever be enough for them to go forward with a She-Ra sequel or spin-off that's teased in the post-credits scene, but I do think the movie will play well there. This is a fun summer movie that probably should have been released like 10 or 12 summers ago. Mattel may have seen all that Barbie money come in and conclude that theatergoers were just dying to see all their childhood toys turned into big movies. And I think it's clear to almost anyone who doesn't work there that that's just not the case. Just because there's a warm glow of nostalgia around a 40-year-old brand, that doesn't mean there's an appetite for a big budget movie. I also don't think Masters of the Universe was a cynical cash grab on the part of Travis Knight or the talent involved. I actually think it turned out about as well as a He-Man movie in 2026 could. But after decades of cash grab retreads of these 80s properties, I can't blame audiences for assuming that that's exactly what it would be and steering clear. I have to give a lot of credit to this movie for how it managed to balance those comedic and earnest tones. That was a lesson that Vince Gilligan had to learn the hard way before he created Breaking Bad, and that tension is at the center of my latest episode of Showrunners, where he's the main focus. As the creator of some truly great shows, Gilligan had to guide enormous, complicated productions without losing what made them work in the first place. In this episode, I look at how he managed that balancing act, and why so many shows fail where he succeeded. And Gilligan is just one of the figures that I'm exploring. There's also an episode on Rod Serling, creator of The Twilight Zone. Every installment of Showrunners dives into the people behind some of the most influential series in TV history. It's a project I've wanted to make for a long time, and really a way to unpack how television actually gets made. If you haven't seen it yet, now's the perfect time to start. You can watch Showrunners right now exclusively on Nebula, where it lives alongside exclusive videos from creators like Lindsay Ellis, Nando V Movies, and other shows like CinemaStix's Let's Rewind. There's over 200 creators on Nebula now, and it's only growing. You'll also get all my regular videos there, ad-free. You can grab a 50% off annual membership for just $30 for the whole year, or about $2.50 a month. Head to go.nebula.tv/captainmidnight, use the QR code on screen, or click the link below to watch the Gilligan episode right now.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once, because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started, because we're going to have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts and prizes too.